Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel, and I'd like to welcome everyone to another weekly episode of Daki TIme. So, before the video starts, I would like to tell everyone that my merchandise store is up and running. Currently, I only have a couple of designs. I have male shirts, female shirts, I have hoodies up there with a couple of design and colors. So guys, if you want to go and check out those shirts and my merchandise, the link will be in the description down below, and for further information, you need to join my Discord page, which will tell you when I post up new designs. But with that said, ladies and gentlemen, let's jump straight into the video. We've got a big one this week, and I'm really excited to dive into it. Alright everyone, so this week's episode dives into the Mythic dungeons, and in particular an article that was written and released on Wowhead about why or what is wrong with Battle for Azeroth's dungeons. Now, this is a hot topic that's been around for a little while, and it's been sort of exploded with the MDI basically, and everything that people have thought with the dungeons have basically culminated, and the MDI has basically supported those theories. But this article really hits a lot of topics, and I've gone through and I've read it, and I'm going to read it back to you guys in part, and I'm going to give my thoughts and theories on it as well. There's a couple of points to hit here, guys. If I missed something, I'm sorry. You guys can read it as well. It's up on the Wowhead website right now. It's only been released for a day, but it hits a lot of topics, guys. There's some people that absolutely love the Mythic Plus scenario in dungeons in Battle for Azeroth right now. Some people really hate it. Some people are sort of in the middle and don't really care. But let's talk about the topics that this brings up. And the article really does start with saying that Legion instances with the Mythic Plus had issues as well. And Battle for Azeroth tried to fix these issues and solve some of these issues. Some of the issues such as too much trash, too little trash, trash too hard, too much kiting involved. So there was a whole bunch of issues that the first season of MDI brought forward, and feedback got sent back to Blizzard at the end of Legion that they really did try and fix in a Battle for Azeroth. So what are the issues with the Battle for Azeroth dungeons right now? And the first point that it brings up is interrupts. Quite frankly, the interrupts have been a point of issue for some time, not just in Mythic Pluses, but in raids, in content. And it basically says that melees have a strong advantage in this point. Hence why in the MDI, you see always two damn rogues, a monk or an unholy death knight, or you always see melee because of the 15-second cooldown on their interrupts. Casters are such a disadvantage here with roughly 24-second cooldowns, with the exception of an elemental shaman and their wind shear. So basically, if you were to take casters in a Mythic Plus environment or a dungeon environment now, or even in the MDI, you would see that you would have to pull smaller packs to help with interrupts and get interrupts out, rather than the massive packs that they can pull, and basically assign interrupts to the 3 melee DPSs, which is what they do. They pull massive packs. If there's 2 or 3 healers in that pack, or a healer and a couple of casters, they'll assign one rogue to that healer, they'll assign another rogue to another caster, and they'll basically say keep those 2 interrupted. So basically the article says that many kicks in most of the dungeons are balanced around the 15-second melee interrupt in many ways. So it basically says that Blizzard have basically tuned these dungeons for a 15-second interrupt rotation. Immediately that puts almost all casters at a disadvantage just from that alone. It goes on to say that even worse off, there are 2 to 3 melee interrupts rotations. So it basically says that there is a healer there that does not only a massive attack to a tank or to a random player, it will also do a heal. So you need, within a 15-second window, 2 interrupts, hence why melee are so strong. It also goes on to say that this puts range at the 24-second interrupt at a significant disadvantage in terms of pull size. This is now possible due to the amount of power and short interrupts for the entire group. So that's what I was saying before, where you can't pull those massive packs if you've got 24-second interrupts. You simply can't get off enough interrupts. This is circumvented by having a stronger tank or a stronger healer, granted, but it's still just it's still an imbalance, and it really shows with the Mythic dungeon the MDI, why there's so many melee and virtually no shadow priests, no mages. There is 1 or 2 mages getting around, but virtually no mages. They utilize the double rogue and the tank and, well, the healer in some points as basically the interrupt rotation, and that's it. No ranged, and it puts range at a significant disadvantage. So what are a couple of ways Blizzard could look at fixing this? And the first way is to make all interrupts on a 15-second cooldown rotation. So, or cooldown. So all casters, healers even, tanks, everyone gets a 15-second interrupt. Everyone gets a 15-second interrupt. The second way they could fix this is make everyone have a 24-second interrupt. So even melee have now a 24-second interrupt. And then the third way is to turn or tune the trash mobs, and even bosses for the point, is tune trash mobs around a 24-second or a longer interrupt rotation rather than a shorter interrupt rotation. This would invite a broader diversity in classes being taken to Mythic pluses, and also the MDI. So you can see that there are a couple of ways they could fix this, and there's a couple of ways that Blizzard are looking into this. We have no idea what's going to be changed, but I would almost put my money on saying the trash mobs are going to be retuned, not so much the interrupt cooldown. And we know this because of past expansions when they have tuned interrupts and removed interrupts and such, they just tune the mobs. It's the easiest thing to tune rather than change everyone's interrupt. So that is the first topic on the article, guys. The next topic goes down to trash imbalance. Now, this is another one that people have seen, especially in the MDI. And the MDI is basically a catalyst to emphasize what we all see on the everyday in the Mythic pluses. It basically says that the trash imbalance is so strong that most groups abuse the shadow meld and the rogue skips, and we see this time and time again in the Mythic dungeon. Is basically the two rogues can just skip whatever mobs they want because it's too much health and it doesn't give enough percentage, or they can skip certain healer mobs or certain custom mobs. They can do whatever they want with the double rogue skip. The shadow meld skip, we basically see, with the exception of a couple of groups, that almost every single group in the MDI right now utilizes two rogues and night elves. It's evident, it's clear, and quite frankly, it's boring. I'm sorry, I'm just going to throw that out there. It's so boring to see every single group in the MDI utilize the exact same composition, the meta build. The meta builds ruin diversity. It really does ruin diversity. The exact same pathing in a dungeon, the exact same groups in a dungeon, the exact same damage done in a dungeon, the exact same interrupts, the exact same... Why are we even looking at all these groups? Why are we looking at this whole tournament when we could just watch one group run through every single dungeon and there you go, that's it? That is how it has been perceived. Now, it is the quickest way around a dungeon, we get it, but it kills diversity. It really kills it and it stops class diversity, basically. So anyway, to continue on with that rant, basically, it also says that in some dungeons there are too much trash count, and in some dungeons there's not enough. An example of this, it states that in the mother load, you can get over 50% of your trash count just from peacekeepers. Just from peacekeepers, that's it. You don't have to fight any other mob inside Motherlode up to approximately 50%. It states that the peacekeeper mob, does next to no damage to your group. It stands there and whacks the tank and puts up a shield. There is no damage done to the group, virtually. You could pull just peacekeepers or pull just the mech jockeys that turn into peacekeepers, get you 50%, use your rogues to get to the end, and Bob's your uncle. Kill a few extras right at the top of the dungeon, and you're done motherload. That is something that needs to be retuned in my way. The trash imbalance, you see how that some count for a huge amount and some don't, basically. Another example of trash imbalance that you see a lot of is the skips on mini bosses. How many mini bosses are skipped with the rogue skips or with shadow melds just because they have so much health and give so little percent that it's a little disconcerting, realistically. Now, Blizzard have stated that they are looking at reasserting the trash imbalance, and they are looking at different percentages. They are looking at health percentages and things. Blizzard have stated they're looking into this in future patches, and they most likely will. When 8.2 comes along, 8.2.5 and 8.3, they will look at readjusting the dungeons to make it easier and more streamlined so that it does feel better to play. But there is a trash imbalance. We do see it a lot, and when you have a trash imbalance, you generally see one or two paths coming out per dungeon. And what that does is it basically sets you up per dungeon to say, this is the path you take, there is no other path, And really, that's just boring. It's like taking the same route to work and home every single day for 20 years of your life. You never ever touch any other road. You follow that exact road every single day for the same, it does become boring and monochromatic, if you really want to say it. But anyway, that's the second topic. They basically talk about the trash imbalance, and this article really hits home that it needs to be looked at. It really does need to be looked at. And there are quite a few changes that Blizzard would implement, but it's been around. How long's Battle for Azeroth been out? And they haven't really done a major refix to this, but that is the way it is. Moving on, the article does move into affixes. This is a massive topic, and it's been the center of controversy since it's been implemented. They got really good at affixes at the end of Legion. I think the affixes for Legion worked out really well. Some were really hard, some were easy, but they didn't feel like one was super hard and one was super easy like it is for Battle for Azeroth. So remember how in some weeks in Battle for Azeroth, you can get a Mythic plus 12 done on your main character. You're like, yes, I've got a Mythic plus done, and then the next week you can only do a 6. Well, that's the affixes for you, and that's how some affixes are overtuned, and some are really, really easy to work around. So the affixes are not balanced, and Blizzard have stated that they are working on this for Battle for Azeroth's dungeons to make them better in the future. So they are looking at them basically, and you can see that the transition from Legion to Battle for Azeroth, they've done the changes already, like the Fortified and Tyrannical got moved to the first affix rather than the last affix. We did see that, which, mind you, I will also point out later in this article, it states that they are negligible now. Let's get rid of Tyrannical and Fortified and just work with the others, basically. But we'll get to that in a second. So basically, in saying that, the affixes do place casters at a disadvantage more so than melee. And this is where imbalances, and this is where class diversity really, really, really hits home, guys. So some affixes just plain suck. For the most part, melee in any week have little to no loss of damage output due to affixes though. And on the other hand, you have casters that have some weeks where they simply can't get any damage out just due to the movement that they've got. So, my example of this basically is, and I know this is just a random example I've picked out, but let's say that there's Quaking and a Volcanic week. In a Volcanic and Quaking week, melee have no disadvantage to this. They can simply just move out of Volcanic, they can basically move from Quaking, and they have no loss of damage just due because they can continue to damage while these two affixes are at play. If there was a Volcanic Quaking week with, say, Fortified or Tyrannical, it really wouldn't matter. You watch how many melee get 20 plus Mythic keys done, because it is so damn easy to pull so much group, have a full melee composition. Bob's your uncle, there's a 12 done in no time at all. Where if you had a full range composition and you did Volcanic Quaking week, good luck trying to get a Mythic 12 done or anything higher. The amount of movement that you would need to do on big pulls with Volcanic is insane. The amount of stop rotation just due to Quaking is insane. You can't really pull great numbers out with a caster due to a melee in this advantage. So the DPS rotation for the casters do have to stop and slow right down in this example. I know it's a random example, guys, but it happens quite a lot, and it dampens a lot of caster DPS, and this is why we don't see Shadow Priests in the MDI. This is why we don't see mages significantly in the MDI. We don't see these classes because they can't work around some affixes, and it sucks. It really does suck. So the article basically states that overall the affixes should take a lesser role to the dungeon, and the dungeons should take the main source of the content. In the current state, affixes determine the doable and non-doable keys, and you look for the key that is most neutral and less volcanic, raging, skittish, etc. You see what I say here, guys, is basically the dungeon should dictate the difficulty. The higher the key should dictate the difficulty, and the affixes should give you a little bit of hindrance and whatnot along the way. The affixes should not dictate how hard the dungeon is or not, because on some weeks you basically open up your chest at the end of the week, you pull out your affix key, your dungeon key, and you look at it and you go, yeah, well, guess what? I'm going to level an alt this week because there's no way I'm doing a Mythic Plus. Or there's some weeks that you basically open up your chest and you get your key and you're like, yes, I'm going to do 10s, I'm going to do 12s, I'm going to do 15s because that is so damn easy. And that should not be the way. What you should be looking at is the dungeon and the difficulty of the key, so how high the key is, not the affixes that are associated with the key. And I would like to make reference to Diablo 3 here, where you had your key gateway, where you literally go through a gateway and you do a dungeon. The way the Diablo 3 worked is that you had affixes in that dungeon with the bosses, and that is what made it difficult. But what really made the dungeon difficult was how high that key was, how high that number was, basically. That really dictated it, because no matter what affix was put in on that current week or day, you could circumvent that quite easily. And that's the way Blizzard should take the route for the Mythic Pluses, is that the affixes should dictate a little bit of difficulty here and there, but the number should really dictate the difficulty. And finally, guys, I know this has been going on for a little bit now, but finally, the article really comes to a culmination by saying that checkpoints are very hard to work around, and that checkpoints should be more often in the in Mythic Plus keys. It goes on to say that let's say Shrine of the Storm. Shrine of the Storm is a perfect example here. If you wipe at any point prior to Lord Stormsong, you basically have to run back from the start. There's no circumventing this. Sure, there is a little bit of a skip with skipping across the bridge. We get that. But quite frankly, if you wipe any point before that, you're running back from the start. And we see this in the Mythic Plus, the MDI. You see that two groups that are fighting it out over Shrine of the Storm, if any of those groups wipe prior to Lord Stormsong, they have generally lost. They can't catch up unless the other group wipes as well, and then they can come back onto a more playing field. So it sucks. It really sucks that there's not enough checkpoints. Checkpoints should not make it too easy, and it shouldn't make it too hard. And right now, we are seeing more hard checkpoints than we are seeing more easy checkpoints. So the article states that runbacks and checkpoints should be a method of allowing you to recover, not instantly make you want to leave the instance. So guys, I absolutely get this. I've been in pug groups where we wipe and we lose a pug just because it's like, well, we're not going to make the time now. We've got to run all this way back. We may have to clear more trash. It sucks. It really does suck. And it's not fun or engaging. So guys, overall, this article hits a good couple of topics, and I absolutely loved reading this, and I absolutely agree on a whole bunch of points. I'm one of these people that love to do Mythic Pluses. I really do. As far as the affixes go, I play a melee mostly as a main, and the affixes don't affect me that often. Maybe the explosives do affect me a bit, bursting affects me a little bit, but overall, it does not scare me as much as what I do when I transition and I want to do a dungeon on my Shadow Priest. When I do a dungeon on my Shadow Priest, I'm like, this is going to hurt because I don't have an interrupt that's on a short cooldown. I don't have the ability to circumvent Quaking or Volcanic easily compared to a melee. So it does suck. It's at a disadvantage to a lot of ranged casters, and this is why we don't see them in the MDI. Guys, that's a lot of talking. We've been going on for a little while now. Thank you all for staying with me with this video. If you want to go and read this article, it's a really good read, guys. It highlights a couple of points, and there's a couple of other articles that support this article as well. So guys, thank you so much for listening. I hope you all enjoyed this. Leave your comments and thoughts, leave your thoughts in the comments section down below or on my Discord page. Let me know what you guys think. I agree with this article. I really do. It sucks on some weeks. It's great on others. It sucks for casters. It's all over the place, and we should simplify this. We should make the keys easier and fun and easy to jump into and do. And there's a dog still barking. I do apologize for that. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and until next time, have a great day.